Hello?
Ah.
Ah.
Lights.
Lights. I have lights. I didn't forget my lights.
Lights.
Should I turn that one off?
Yes. How's everybody doing today? There we go. That's good lighting.
I'm huge.
Hello.
Hello. Also, hi, Hope.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. If you're still here. It's a muted tab and just go on with your business. Yeah. To be fair, I've done that.
Do it for the views.
Yes. I think the only one I never do that with is you.
Yeah.
And with Knight, I usually talk for a little while, and then I go do something else. But I tell him, like, hey, I've been here for a bit, I'm gonna go do whatever. So he's used to me.
Yeah.
And for some reason at Frogs, I just end up leaving without saying anything, even though I could. Although not leaving, but again, muting the site and then going to do the thing.
Lurking without saying so.
Yeah. I did post. Yeah, I did post.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also saved the title 3 times.
Yes.
Twice because
I wasn't sure.
The first one you didn't remember. The second one you did yourself, and then I said do it again.
Yes. So I did do it again.
Yes. So it's 3 times.
I did.
But yes, you did also send the message.
Cool. Then it's just waiting for people to be here.
Yes.
A little bit.
Is everybody excited for stream?
I'm really
for these 2 chapters. Yes, I am.
Good.
Are you?
I am.
Good. Definitely.
Some of the sentences are gonna be scary.
Some of the sentences.
All of your sentences are I've been doing something fun.
Oh yeah?
I've been proofreading Joker's story.
Ooh.
He suddenly sent me a message and I was like, could you just, read this for me?
Nice.
Like, hell yeah.
That's cool.
And I started adding things to the notes and I was like, I'm just recommending these things. Just this is why I'm building everything up. Like, this is why I'm saying that you may want to do this a certain way. Like, underlining everything with why I'm doing the thing, because I don't like when people say, that's wrong.
Yeah.
So,
you can say that's wrong, but also,
this is why.
That's wrong because.
So the first time I mentioned that, he was like, well, I am dyslexic, so feel free to make as many notes as you need.
Note number 1, use Google Docs. It's nice.
It's Google Docs.
Good.
Yes, it is.
Good.
Which is also
Happy egg.
Comments. Hello. I'm here, but I'm not here. Maybe I'm here. I'm not sure. Well, welcome regardless.
Yes. Hello.
Also, hi, Pixie.
You also happy egg.
Happy eggy, yes. I was discussing with Hubs about getting noise-cancelling headphones. Well, that's fair. That actually can work really well, especially with the setup you guys have. Their computers are basically, she sits like this and he sits right there.
Yes.
So I can imagine that being useful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like an office at home.
So for him having the headset, or for you having the headset?
Both.
Or both. It's not really for the computer. Oh, okay. Just to get calm in your brain. That's also fair. Then it would be for her, because she's with the children all day.
Yeah. Understandable.
But that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Just noise cancelling.
Oh boy.
Ooh.
I know that feeling. Well, I hope you can recover soon. Oh yeah, that's fair. I know your family. They're great, but also a lot. I love all of them, but they're a lot. She also has a big family. She has 3 brothers with all their own partners.
Great.
Some have children. She has children. Her parents there. It's 3. Yeah, it's 3 brothers.
Damn.
They're nice though.
I'm sure they are, especially when you can just leave them again.
Weird Ash runs, though. Kids had fries and frikandellen for breakfast. I mean, I'm sure they didn't mind.
Breakfast? I mean, sure, but...
I mean, technically, whenever you give D the worstenbroodjes, he's also having frikandel for breakfast. It does sound like a great breakfast.
Yeah. It's not very Easter.
No.
But I mean, sure,
I mean,
right?
I would recommend eggs next time. But, if they don't eat those.
Yeah, for the happy egg.
Yeah.
The egg festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't give those for breakfast. Those are for lunch. Yeah, that's fair. That we're not living in the same country as my family. It's way too big and crazy. They do not eat eggies. No, I kind of expected as much. I do know your children and their eating habits. They are worse than some of the people that I know. Actually, I think two of them at least are more difficult than most of the people that I know, which is saying a lot. Because I know quite a few people that have difficult diets.
Yes.
It's always weird when I realize that I will actually eat anything. It's actually when I went to Rensis, or Acnologia, for anyone who sees him here in the chat sometimes. I went to his place and he was like, well, is there anything you don't like for me to make for dinner?
Here's a list of things I do like. It's probably more accurate because the list that he doesn't like is longer.
The other way around. He was asking me.
Oh, here's a list that
No. I just said, like, make whatever you want. And he asked for lunch. He was like, well, what do you like on bread, or what kind of bread do you like? So just get whatever you would eat and I will eat with you.
Yeah.
He's like, but I want you to eat something you like, because I'm most likely gonna like it.
Yeah.
Not only that, at least then, if I leave, you can still finish it.
That's also kind of the point. At some point he mentioned having cola in his fridge that he never drank.
Yes.
Yeah.
He got new ones for me.
Oh, good.
He also got new ones for the first birthday, which is next month. So.
Also, drinking the other cola is probably like you'd rather drink ditch water. Not dish water, ditch water.
Yes.
An irrigation ditch.
Both are bad.
There's mud in it. It's probably better. It's the same color anyway.
Yes. I've survived. I'm unloading my brain dump and trying to get back to a stabilized brain. Words are still hard though. That's fair.
Understandable.
Absolutely.
Another reason to not have kids.
Same, yeah. I have a hard time with social situations as it is, let alone teaching a child social situations. I'm good.
Yeah. I have a hard time with overloading noise.
Yeah, that works. That makes it...
Children are not...
noise cancelled.
Not silent.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. It wasn't the kids, they had fun. There was playing area with jumping castle things and egg painting and stuff. Oh. That's fair. I mean, overload can happen with anything, and it is clearly for a social situation, regardless if that was your children. I can also imagine having to put all of your kids into the car, going to the thing, then having the entire social situation, still getting them back into the car and back home. That entire full-on experience just being too much and then overloading.
Yeah.
Because it's a bucket thing. It fills up.
Everything together is a logistical nightmare.
Yes.
So
everything together, I can very much imagine why this happened. Yes. But yeah.
It's good that they had things to do, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds like a very fun time for them.
I was going to say, it sounds like they have fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bouncy Castle, fuck yeah.
We've been to Monkey Town in Rijswijk at some point with the kids and her hubby.
Mm-hmm.
And Seven. And then me and Hope were just sitting at the tables, and then both our hobbies just kept going to the kids. Like, yeah, that works. Go ahead, bye.
Yeah, perfect.
They were playing along and like climbing all of the contraptions together. That was a lot of fun.
You think Frog or I would sit still there?
No, absolutely not.
Exactly.
Well, maybe if you guys both had like a Switch with you.
Then still
playing your own little, or if Frog had his Switch with him, then he's like playing, and then you try.
Yeah, the moment he says you try, he's gone to climb.
Yeah, that's fair. That's he more likely than you, but both. Yes. I think the thing that pushed me overload was my childless sister-in-law, who keeps talking about how she would be better at staying consequent with her currently non-existent kids, and her kids would learn this and that, and she would never do this or say that. Yeah, you don't know until you're in the situation. Like, I've given you an advice here or there, being like, hey, can't you try this? I would never say I wouldn't do this, because you don't know until you're there.
Well, unless I wouldn't do this in a...
I mean, I could. I have her Facebook. I have all of them on Facebook. I think. I mean, there's a place for giving advice when you don't have children and saying, like, I wouldn't do that. You don't know. You can't know until you have the child yourself.
Well, it's the thing of, I wouldn't do that.
Hello.
Okay. I wouldn't do that. Maybe you should try this. Like,
yeah, but you don't...
That's different from, I wouldn't do that to my own children. I wouldn't do that. It's just...
Yeah. I mean, I would like to think that I would be consistent and doing the same things every single time. Trying to keep them taught that way. The same way, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but you do the same thing for a dog. You make sure you do the same thing every single time, because if you change anything, or if one of them isn't consistent with the same manner of teaching, they're never going to learn. But I've had a dog, not my own, but my stepmom's, and she would listen to me because I was fairly consistent, but she would not listen to anyone else because they weren't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to say, like, I will always be consistent.
No, of course not.
The only thing I can say is, like, this is the only experience I have.
Yeah.
I don't even think that with a child I could always be consistent. Actually, I think I would overload, just like you did. Just from the children themselves.
Yeah.
Instead of someone telling me, like, oh, I would do it that way.
Well, when you have children, then you'll find out.
Yes.
Good luck.
Absolutely.
If you don't want children, then fuck off.
I mean, it's a great deterrent if you already don't want children to be with someone that has children. So me and Seven don't really care for children. We are very happy with our nieces and nephews. Very, very happy with our nieces and nephews. But also, like...
Big squish.
Big squish. But I every time I come home from somewhere where someone has children, I am fairly happy that I get to go home without children.
Hello.
With this, it's difficult because lots depends on the situation. It's not all black and white, and my kids are pretty good at giving well-built arguments. Yeah, I mean, they don't have that from a stranger. You're also great. Could have crossed them. I'm shaking the table. Yeah, you're great at giving arguments.
Don't talk to me or my child.
Children are great and all, as long as they aren't mine. Yeah, exactly. I love children. I love my nieces and nephews, but I'm good with not having a child.
I like my
nephews.
My little nephews. They are nice.
I was gonna say nieces, but I know they're boys.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
I like my little nephews. They are nice. All other kids, no. Just have them back.
Exactly. You can just give them back to the parents.
Yeah, but just don't give them to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not good with kids. I don't pretend to be. I don't try to be. I don't need to be.
I do think you could be, but I mean, if you don't
I'm sure I could be.
If you don't want that, then you shouldn't have to be.
It mostly depends on the age.
That's also fair.
So, when they're too young, I'm pretty much useless. When you can have a conversation or do something together, then it's much easier. Not that you do something and they just look at you vacantly like.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm good without children. I'm happy with my nieces and nephews. I'll give them hugs every now and then. Thankfully, they like me too. At least the two that know who I am. Because her youngest, that she just mentioned, doesn't actually know me all that well. She's seen me once. Weirdo.
I couldn't actually see what that looked like. Because I couldn't see shit.
Oh, I wonder why. You took off your glasses. You could only just see. You're making it a turban.
Yes. Well, it's better than Leia buns. Or horns.
It's true.
Devil horns.
See, this is why he can be good with children. He can entertain.
Yes, I am one.
Yes. I wasn't going to say it, but yes.
There you go.
Okay.
You can put it in there.
There goes my brushed hair.
Oh no!
Oh dear.
You still walk around.
Yes. He looks very angry over there. You mean he is one now? Yes.
He really doesn't need a hat.
Yes.
He's a little bald. That's a nice toupee.
So I put
Yeah.
Lucas on top.
Yeah, there we go. It's a good toupee.
Little hat.
No, squished hair.
Don't worry about it. Anyway, maybe we should do what we came here for and, read.
Unlike Friday. Do what we came for.
It's fine. But I do want to end up doing, other things today.
So, a quick explanation for what I just meant. We do rehearsals for these streams, usually on the Friday beforehand. And
thank you.
We do these chapters the same way we do them on stream, just to have them in our mind and have the wordings a little bit prepared.
Yes.
Because we are working ahead, a good amount ahead.
About 9 chapters.
Yeah, about 9 chapters, exactly. So when we go back to these, it's like, oh yeah, this is what happened here, or this is what's going on right now. And we kind of forget because there's a big time difference between this chapter and the next one where we are working on. So we do the same, chapter end, mid-section, have a little bit of a talk, have a sippy, and just continue with the next one.
Yes.
Usually that
in between is 5 minutes.
Intermission is 5 minutes. Last Friday, last rehearsal, took 2 hours. 2 hours of just tangent on tangent on tangent.
Yeah, and then we were at 11, which is usually the time we stop, because we tend to play a game after the rehearsal, just chatting and playing game. And we got to 11, I was like, maybe, I'm just thinking here, but maybe we want to just do the other chapter so you can actually go hang out with Apple. And he agreed, so we ended up being finished at 11:30 instead of 11 like we usually are.
We did do all the rehearsal.
Yes.
But our intermission was 2 hours.
So instead of playing game, we talked for hours.
Yeah, we just stared at a chapter end screen for 2 hours.
Or the beginning of the next one.
Actually,
So chapter 31 was like staring me in the face. Like, you should start me.
Just a pointed stare from the 31. Like, finish.
How dare
Continue.
I'm waiting over here.
Yeah. How dare.
Waiting to be read.
How dare you keep me waiting. So that was funny.
Yes.
Let's not do 2 hours of intermission on this stream.
No.
But probably more than 5 minutes. How dare you? How fucking dare you?
Are we ready?
Yeah, are we ready? Is everybody ready?
Immediately, Apple was typing. There you go.
That one, yeah.
Exciting story awaits. Thanks, Fifi.
Absolutely. Exciting.
It's horrible. It's probably a bit more comfortable for me.
Likely, yes.
Chapter 30. After a good, healthy, but not too heavy meal by Lachlan, the group used the early afternoon light to trek back towards the cave mouth they had first discovered Rohan at. Are you sure we should do this? Stealing a child? Zenith asked as she fell into step with Lachlan.
It's the least dangerous solution. Bargaining for his son gives us the upper hand, or we might not have to fight.
Not fighting does sound like the best option. You will give him back, right?
You can't keep the son around, but if negotiations go sideways, we may not have a moment to release him.
A grim scowl filled his face. A shadow from his hair darkened his eyes. He was serious, there was no doubt. We can't harm him. Children are innocent.
We may have no other choice. Harming the kid is our last resort. It may break Rohan after seeing his kid in real danger. I'll leave him alive, if push comes to shove.
Laughlin's words were sharp as knives. Both Hazard and Valentina shuddered and looked at each other.
I don't know, Lachlan. I'm in Zenith here. Harming children goes way past bounds, even for me.
Hazard stood next to Zenith. Valentina hummed in agreement, concern written on her face. I've seen you do some magic. Can't you make it look like you are without harming him?
I can only do so much. My powers have improved during our travels, but I'm not an illusionist. This is only if Rohan doesn't cooperate. He plays nice, we play nice.
Lachlan said, quickening his pace. Hazard put a hand on Zenith's shoulder.
Did you see his eyes? He wasn't kidding.
Looking at hers, he realized she had the same look in her eyes. Fire, burning heat shot like beams out of her stare. Children are sacred, she growled, staring into Hazard's eyes. She paused for a moment, her stance deflating a little bit. They don't grant us children easily back home, she said, trying to turn away from him.
I mean, I agree with you. I think harming the kid is worse than beating the dragon. I don't know what's gotten into him. Ever since we got on this island, he's been acting strange, like he's hiding something. I know this is, and now this grim intent. It's not like him to say these things.
I'm afraid we're going to have to convince him, however hard that will be. Zenith sighed, but she knew they needed to do something to get Clovis. It was necessary for their cause. What do we do if this child isn't there? Valentina asked loud enough for them all to hear.
Better hope he is, otherwise blood will definitely be spilled.
Lachlan said, his voice still stern. The others knew they were coming up to the cave. They had to stop talking. After conveying that to Lachlan too, they hiked the last of the way there and found a good vantage point to make sure the dragon was even present at the time. Peeking around the corner, the cave was dark. Inside, Lachlan saw the shimmer of scales, large and coiled into a ball to fit into the narrow hole in the mountainside. He saw the silhouettes of 3 others, 2 adults and the dragon's son.
They're all here. Time to set this in motion,
Lachlan whispered when he got back to the group. They all nodded, too much tension to say more, and most of the words already said. Zenith followed Valentina and Hazard to the ledge further. They would try to draw the attention of the guards. Hazard picked up a rock and looked over to Lachlan for a signal. Lachlan courted from the cave mouth, turned to Hazard, gave a swift nod, and melded into the rock wall. Hazard threw the rock into the cave as far as he could.
Ow!
For the love of... Who did that?
Probably some gremlin. You know their antics by now, no?
Gremlins don't throw that far. Plus, they know better than to disturb a dragon's den. There's someone out there we should take a look.
Dehan said, his voice getting louder. Hazard had climbed up to the cave opening. As Dehan exited the shelter, he was greeted by a swift metal uppercut to the bottom of his jaw.
Godfrey, get over here. There's trouble that needs to be dealt with.
Dehan yelled, his nose pinched to stop the bleeding. Godfrey took his time, looked around in a couple of directions before leaving the cave. He looked side to side to make sure there was no room for sneak attacks. If only he had considered his assailant could fly. Valentina dropped from the sky out of Zenith's arms and onto the shoulders of the large hunchbacked ogre. She clawed at his eyes. His yells made Dehan look around, away from Hazard.
Shouldn't have looked away.
Hazard laughed, his steel fist colliding once again with Dehan's skull. Writhing, he fell to the floor. Godfrey, meanwhile, put one arm over his face and one arm swung over his head. Valentina jumped away before being hit by the swing, but in her dodge fell off the ogre's shoulder and onto the stone floor. Zenith quickly dove in, helping her up. Valentina punched the beast's gut, being met with an impenetrable amount of muscle, hurting her arm more than Godfrey's stomach. From behind the ogre, Zenith saw Hazard's grin. Seconds later, both Hazard's fists bashed into either side of Godfrey's head. He slumped slightly and started drooling.
You think you got us, huh? Being hurt only makes him stronger. Ain't that right, big guy?
Dehan peeled himself off the ground slowly. Heavy breathing and snorts of anger came from Godfrey. His giant form grew even bigger, muscles bulging. A roar that trampled the pebbles on the ground emanated from the red-eyed monster. There was no Godfrey anymore. There was only rage.
You smell terrible, Lord Almighty.
Massive arms like tree branches swung wildly around. Even Dehan fled the scene, knowing his partner wouldn't watch for anything anymore. A fist the size of his head smashed Hazard in the gut. Winded, he got back up and swiftly retaliated with a punch of his own. The impact left a dent on the ogre's pectorals. In response, the muscles grew larger.
What? The other guy was right. He does grow stronger from being hurt.
Well, that's it. Hit him more.
Yeah, think?
No, I mean, if his muscles grow when you hit him more, at some point they'll be too big to move. With those words, Hazard's eyes lit up.
Now you don't have to tell me twice.
With a big grin on his face, he threw a flurry of fists at Godfrey. The beast was too blinded with anger to dodge any of the hits, making his abdomen and arms ever larger. His punches slowed down, but with the size of a boulder per fist, even slower hits could lob your head clean off. I believe it's working. He's slowing down. Zenith saw Dehan sneak away. Not on my watch, she said, taking to the skies again. A couple of hits later, Hazard became tired himself. His efforts weren't in vain. The punches of the man the size of a horse-drawn cart barely had momentum as he staggered on his feet. With a final uppercut, the giant stumbled and landed on his back, unable to get back up. Dehan slowly made his way out of the cave made his way to the cave entrance again to inform the dragon of the intruders. However, just before he entered the cave, a rock landed on his head, knocking him clean out. Oops, clumsy me, Zenith shrugged, letting herself down again. The three looked at each other for a second, breathed a sigh of relief, and refocused on the cave. From within, the dragon uncoiled itself. With a rush of wind, the large red creature sped by, holding the child in his arm. Not a minute later, Lachlan emerged, unscathed, holding a yellow glowing rock. Valentina, Hazard, and Zenith all ducked down, hiding from the dragon's swishing tail, Zenith tucking her wings in tight. When he was far enough away from the mountain, they all rushed towards Lachlan.
What happened in there?
Did it work? Valentina asked nearly at the same time.
The plan worked splendid.
Lachlan held the new relic in front of them. How are you not harmed? Or are you?
Not a scratch. You three taking care of the guards made my work infinitely easier.
He started walking back the way they came.
You guys coming along?
Zenith jumped into the air and landed next to Lachlan, walking alongside him at a small distance. Is the boy okay?
Slightly afraid. The dragon was nice. He played along. The boy has no physical harm done by me.
Zenith breathed a sigh of relief that she didn't realize she had held up until then. Good. She let Hazard and Valentina take her place next to Lachlan, as she walked a little bit behind them. Is that the relic?
You didn't have to rough up the dragon at all?
Hazard inquired, sounding slightly disappointed, before Lachlan even had the chance to answer Valentina's question.
We'll have to ask the Tree Folk tribe if it is. But it does look to be Corvus.
Lachlan said, taking another look at the stone.
Answer my question. You fought a dragon, threatened his kin, somehow made him reason with you and leave like you asked, and you return unharmed? What happened in there? No vague words.
I can't tell you here. I will. Later.
If you want to go to the tribe, you're leading us the wrong way, Zenith said softly from the back.
Right. I knew that. How about you lead from here?
Lachlan slowed his step and followed after Zenith. Zenith stepped in front of the group, knowing exactly what to look for in the trees to make their way back to the Tree Folk tribe. As the forest grew quieter, she grew more and more sure they were going the right way. Soon she found the correct formation of trees, where they had spoken to them earlier. She held her hand up, halting the rest of the party. Honorable Elder Nebryak, we've come with good news. The dragon has vacated the mountain.
How dare! She speaks the elder's name.
The trees know. They saw thy battle and informeth the forest.
The slow speech of Elder Nebryak echoed through the trees.
I am not yet aware of your customs. My apologies if I have offended you. How dare! How dare!
Thou art forgiven, for thou rid us of the beast. If you saw our battle, you must know of the stone we now hold. Is this what we've been looking for? Is this the Corvus relic?
Lachlan held the rock aloft.
Thou holdest the great power. That, indeed, is Corvus. The Draconic kept it within its clutches.
Elder Nebryk's voice became softer.
Thank you. We will leave the tribe in peace.
Slowly, so they wouldn't startle anyone, they walked out the same way they came.
Pleasant child. Her insolence shall be forgiven.
Zenith heard a final tree whisper. Zenith bowed her head reverently, knowing the trees saw all. They traveled in silence for a while as they made their way back towards the camp at the base of the mountain.
Welcome in, Joker.
Welcome.
Welcome in.
How are you? I tried to follow and it not let me. How do you mean?
Probably internet issues, I think.
That's fair.
So it not let me is like it keeps buffering.
You're okay, good. I'm glad.
Locked in, it is clear. The bard did what the bard does.
We'll see. He's gonna explain. He's gonna explain himself in the next.
That's your fanfic.
He is a bard.
Fanfics are allowed.
He is a bard.
Yes. Please.
Yes. I've clicked follow and it unclicked it repeatedly, but oh, the follow button is not working.
Ah, yes.
It's also the first time you're in my chat ever. I didn't know.
Yeah, apparently so. How you doing, bud? It's been a while.
Yes. Actually, for me, not. I literally spoke to him yesterday or this morning. I don't remember.
They blend together.
I think it was yesterday, actually, because the last bit that I read was yesterday from his story. I mentioned earlier that I'm proofreading the first few chapters of your story.
Yeah, it sounds sick.
Well, I didn't explain what it was.
No, but the fact that you're writing something is sick. I don't know anything about it.
I mean, at this point,
nothing has been spoiled.
If you're like, you can tell him about it, I will do so after stream. But I wouldn't tell your story on my stream.
Yeah, no.
I wasn't that far. Just making sure you understand. I just mentioned that I'm proofreading.
Cool.
I do really enjoy it. So the thing you're struggling with, I think that's the best way to say it, is something he's really good with. Which is building the world, building the details around where they are. Mm-hmm. He's really good at explaining how something looks. Like, I see it, basically.
Cool.
I didn't get notifications, but yeah, it's been good. It was night just before I went to the pub. That's all good. I don't mind people chatting about it, but I get what you're saying. Cool.
Cool. Is that something I struggle with? I don't know.
But you have more of an issue of starting to explain how something looks. You're good at it, but you don't think about it until I'm like, hey, we may want to show where we are or how it looks. You've also mentioned not knowing how to start that. Like,
I'm not good with intros.
Yeah. Which is a lot of the world building, I guess. So that would maybe get some stuff in my head.
I guess.
You're okay at doing them. You don't do them out of nowhere.
I
think that's more accurate then.
I'm also not that great with dialogue.
No, but generally that's easier between us because you can just bounce back off what
Yeah.
I'm saying. You're great at battle scenes, though. That's definitely your forte.
Action scenes.
I mean, half of this was written by you.
Written.
Don't know what accent that is, but sure.
Great written. Yeah, action scenes are definitely my forte. I see those very vividly in my mind, and I can describe them decently.
Thankfully, because I'm really bad at them.
The action I can describe. The locations is a little less.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say you're bad at it. You don't think about doing them as much.
Yeah.
And he does, like, really good at explaining how things look to give me a good view of how like, one of the things that he was describing well, too, actually, is two buildings. And I can definitely see how the buildings look in my mind. So it's definitely done well. There's battle scenes soon in the book, but I think you're a chapter before at the moment. I think I am at the chapter of Sir Ron and Amadeus. I did start it this morning. I didn't have any comments yet, but I did start it this morning. He's in the woods.
Also, I need to improve stuff. Oh, honestly, we do too.
Yeah.
So often we just need to like switch some things. Between us, it's go for it and make a pass afterwards. Like you're now doing the pass for Halo.
Yes.
For the first book, so it's like we just write things, and then later on we check. Like, does this make sense? Does this work well? Yes, it's also that one.
It's also my emote.
Yes. Weird.
My emote.
Yes.
Squeeze. Mine is pink on the inside.
We are all pink on the inside.
I thought you were blue. I'm often blue. I'm also often green. Don't worry about it.
You're slightly confused. It's fine.
I can be brown, I can be blue, I can be fire in the sky. It's fine. Zippy. I have the Piña one.
The Pinapapapale.
Yes, that one.
Ultra gold.
Ultra gold.
It's so shiny.
Yes, cola. Because you already finished this monster.
Yes.
But yeah, I think I'm literally just before that battle scene, Joker. I'm pretty sure. Stitch! Oh, that was a crack somewhere. Biggest problem is my head autofills and corrects as I read instead of actually seeing the issue. So keep proofreading is really helping. I mean, the thing that Joker does a little bit is where he will explain how something looks, and then he uses a certain phrase that is like beautifully written, and then in the next little bit, the exact same sentence reappears. Which, I mean, if you're dyslexic, I can definitely see how you can suddenly like skip those things because it's a new word. There's new bits and you're trying to get through the new bits. So I can definitely see how those slip your mind, but they definitely come closer for me because I'm reading and like, I've read this before. Like I'm basically having an immediate deja vu. So I usually pick one or the other to comment on, being like, you already said this? You may want to change the wording of this one, or you may want to remove it completely depending on what it's necessary. And in the first 3 chapters, I think I had 4 instances of that. Where I was like, not so much necessary.
Not too bad, honestly. Yes, you need to improve on that, but also you don't really, because you still have a proofreader to get those issues out.
Yeah.
So improving in writing is mostly just the writing itself.
Yes.
If you use the same wording over and over, then yes, you want to change that. But I think your word use is probably fine.
Yes.
The choice of words is probably fine. Just the fact that you're doubling it is...
And there have been a few moments where in the same sentence there would be the same word, which is something that all writers try not to, but often do. Things like... I think there was one at the start, I think it was something like repeat or recite, something like that. Which it happened in the same sentence twice, and then in the next sentence it was again, which is where I said, like, hey, the second one in this sentence needs to be gone, but like you can either choose to the third one, you can choose to do the same word because it's technically correct, but you can also try to find a synonym, which is usually how I fix those things, because I do it too. Like,
Everyone
honestly,
does.
I definitely do it too. And you don't read your own mistakes. You just fly over them.
Just imagine the amount of times that you use the same word in talking in one sentence. Because when writing, you're doing the same thing. Just everything that is spoken in your mind, you put on paper.
Yes.
If that uses the same word twice, then it will be on the paper twice.
Reverence. That's the
Reverence, yeah.
Yeah. It was the reverence, yes.
Yeah, so when you do that in your mind already, like doubled, then it's going to be on your writing. It's going to be doubled, and then having either a proofreader or proofreading it yourself to find the similarity in these words. Like recite was actually a good example because it's recite and recital. That's a block of text. So it's either recite and then recital. You probably want to swap one of them because they are too similar.
Yes.
You also want to try to avoid rhyming in sentences.
Unless you're making a prophecy, then you want to.
Well, yes, unless it's deliberate. That's kind of
spoken word or prophecies are generally fine, but in any of the normal text, you want to avoid it because it feels a little weird to read it that way.
Yeah, and if you have multiple of the same words, it's also still, if it's deliberate and it's emphasized that it's deliberate, then it's fine.
Yeah. If
it's the same word over and over in one sentence,
then the repetitiveness gets annoying for a reader.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid the repetition unless it's deliberate. You want to avoid rhyming schemes unless it's deliberate. Stuff like that.
I often have that I try to describe something, but it feels like it's not the full description, so I try again with different sentence, which implies pretty much the same, but emphasizes different part more, and it's still not the whole description, so it feels lacking, and in the end I have a whole paragraph saying pretty much the same thing, which gets fully deleted in the end, because who cares that wallpaper is pink and purple flowers, and there's a plant in the corner of that room. Yeah.
Well,
some people do.
Some people care.
Yeah.
And the entire thing, you should probably just rewrite it, not necessarily delete it.
I think what her point is that she will explain, like, oh, there's a pink wallpaper. On this pink wallpaper...
There we go, there's the follow.
Thank you. There's pink wallpaper. On this pink wallpaper, there's purple flowers, but also on this pink wallpaper is also, in front of this pink wallpaper, there's also a plant in that corner of that room. Whereas you are repeating the thing 3 times over, where you could just say, there's pink wallpaper with purple flowers, and there's a nice flower pot in the corner of the room.
And there
where you then still...
twice in the same sentence.
Okay, there's a nice potted plant in the corner of the room. Like, that way you just, reshift your entire sentence, and I think that's what she was trying to say.
That was a good sentence, and also a good example of using the same word in one sentence twice, because technically... purple flowers on the wallpaper and a flower pot are 2 entirely different things, but they are still the same word.
And
so one of them needs to change.
Yes.
Well, the purple flowers on the pink wallpaper, you need to keep that because that is kind of the entire thing. The flower pot.
You can potted plants.
There are similarities or
Yes.
similar words, synonyms of flower pot, pot plant, pot flower. It has flower in it.
Flower, yeah.
Yeah, a pot. Whatever is in it.
With nice leafy greens. It's all good.
Yeah, just a head of lettuce.
I was gonna say that too.
It's just a vase with a head of lettuce on it. Leafy greens, beautiful. It's my still life.
Don't worry about it.
Greenery, there you go.
I like having a chance to talk to other writers. It makes it easy. Yes, don't worry about it. See, this is how you learn. It's like, this sounds wrong, so no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, leafy greens? No, that's not.
It also,
It sounded better in my head than it does on paper.
one of the last ones that he had was naming. He named the city. Again, I'm not going to say all the things because it's spoilers. He named the city and then he called the city by its title, just like you had David and then David the Forest Soul.
Yep.
The second bit he repeated twice, and I mentioned that with one of them. I was like, "Hey, you just repeated that from just before." He sent me a message. He was like, "I'm confused. I don't see it." So I had to name 1, 2. It's right there and there. It was really close together, and he just did not see it because he wrote it.
Yeah.
You will not see it, but if he had, most likely, not for everyone, but most likely, and I do this, when you read that out loud instead of in your head, you might actually find it anyway. Because I've had that a few times where I was like, what's wrong here? And he would be like, you did something wrong, or this is wrong. And then I would sound it out in my head, and it still didn't click. And then I would say it out loud, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yep. And also with, that actually does make rehearsals very useful, because then you sound them out, and it's like, oh no, this isn't what I wanted to say.
We change so much in stream.
We fix a good amount of things.
Yeah.
There was one that was kind of funny, because it was, well, it's actually coming up still, but at some point they're talking about breakfast.
Yes.
And then the next sentence over, literally
Dinner!
ended on the word breakfast. The next sentence, dinner
preparations. We're going.
That shouldn't be dinner. There it says breakfast.
No.
So we changed that to the preparations. Because then it's like, it doesn't use the same word breakfast, because it is breakfast preparations. Dinner preparations was wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it's now the preparations, because it was breakfast, and using breakfast 2 words in a row doesn't work.
Yeah. Exactly. We're not crazy, just writers. Basically implies the same thing. Yes. It has nothing to do with each other, but it's definitely true.
Just Googling how wounds work.
Yes.
And how
how can I kill this person? Character.
would a mace to the side of the body kill a person?
Yes.
I
don't need to look that up.
And then,
Yes, it will.
then Google says, yes. Cool. Also, we're calling the NSA.
FBI. Something.
Yo, thanks for the sub, dude.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm not a writer whatsoever. I certainly do know I do have a problem with over-explaining a simple thing, like explaining a room. Certainly, I have noticed this with D&D character stories made for a campaign. It's really difficult to find a good balance, because this is something I talked about with Apple. She really likes very detailed rooms, where I prefer less details because I like my mind filling in the rest.
Yes.
Which is definitely a difference in readers, but also in writers. Because writers, I don't use that much detail because I'm used to what I prefer. Whereas if Apple would write a story, there's a good chance she will go into way more detail because she prefers that way of reading as well.
Yep.
So it's really difficult to find a balance that works for everyone.
Also, you say you're not a writer whatsoever, but also you make backstories for your D&D characters.
So you are technically a writer, yes. How do you think this story started? It's also technically a D&D thing. It's fine. Could be.
It's entirely set up as a D&D thing, and then it just turned into a story, because we just got
I mean, it immediately went to a story. It was always meant to be.
But it's like, we went through character creation like it was D&D. We had backstories for the characters. We had the entire character sheet, no stats, of course. And then
to a degree, we have perks and detriments.
Well, that's not stats.
No, that's true.
Stats is it's 18 strength.
Yeah.
who cares?
True.
It's not a story about the numbers. It's just, it doesn't have stats. We have the characteristics, we have backstory, and that's all we had for those characters. And then we use that in the story.
It could be great to say a character that's like a nuts potion or make or something that grows salads and plant pots. Totally an awesome character concept. Now it's fair. Which is why we have proofreaders. You stir yourself blind on your own writing after all. Absolutely.
This honestly, this is an issue in my work as well. As a web developer, I constantly look at the same bit of code for hours on end, and at some point you're just reading between the lines of code because you're not looking at your own code anymore. You're just looking at the issue and trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And you can't read your own code anymore, so you have someone else just take your mind off for a second and go grab a coffee. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just get your mind away from this piece and go do something else because this ain't working.
Yeah, absolutely. Then eating breakfast and then waiting for yeah, that was definitely, I was like, wait, hold up. She's eating just before, and then like a little bit later she's like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm really excited for breakfast. I was like, you were already eating your breakfast.
Yeah.
Something went wrong here.
We've done that too.
I totally meant character, not person. Yes, everyone likes different things. I try to achieve this when giving D&D descriptions. I try to set another words that your brain makes assumptions in your own imagery, which is what I prefer. And you do get the point here. The ones with stats are called lit RPG, right? I don't know. No, a fresh pair of eyes can help a lot. Oh my god, reading code in the error report, trying to trace it back to a source. That's absolute rage. It's his work.
Yep, that's my life.
Gonna lurk. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for popping in.
Absolutely.
I always appreciate it.
But yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's also like knowing how to accept criticism. I explained earlier, like I try to underline everything of why I'm giving you this feedback, because I don't like getting people saying like that's wrong, because I will feel like okay, so why? What did I do wrong? Or how do I fix it? Or whatever. If someone says this needs to be that way, it's okay. Why does it have to be that way? Because it sounds normal to me.
It doesn't have to be.
But, you know, that's also why I underline saying, like, this is all advice. If you don't agree with me, feel free to ignore it, because it's just advice. It's just me telling you what I think I would prefer. But that doesn't mean that your way is wrong.
Exactly.
So that's definitely a thing. Like, you do need to either be able to get or give criticism correctly. It's also why I don't usually go, like, you did something wrong. It's like, hey, I think this might be the better way to do this.
There's a big difference in teaching and shaping.
Yes.
Like, if you teach someone, then they learn how to look at their own errors.
Yes.
And how to fix them. If you find an error in a sentence and you say, that's wrong, then they have no way to respond with, that was intentional.
True.
If you say, I think that's...
I think that
shapes a little, or that feels a little weird, then they have the opportunity to say, yeah, I did it this way because of this reason. It's actually a great example, again, with his story. One of his characters has higher status as the person we're following. Is it a noble or so? It's a priest. Priest. And it's basically, he wants to call him by his full name. Priest says, please just call me shortened version of name. And every single end of sentence, or very often, the main character will call his name at the end of the sentence, which is very unnecessary. It's also, like, it can read as annoying. Like, if I were to, like, every sentence I direct to you, I go, holy, at the end, you would go insane. Yes. But also, it can be an honorific, which is how he meant it. So I made that comment. It's like, you really don't need to finish every sentence with his name. He was like, well, I did that specifically because he has such respect for this person that he wants to, like, basically says sir at the end. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one I thought. I did mention... If it's a priest, it's usually father or... I did mention to him that he said, like, I could probably swap it out for honorifics, but the whole point was that the
priest didn't want him to use honorifics, and just said the shortened version of his name. So he's basically using that instead of sir or father or something like that. I was like, well, if this is your preference, go for it. Like, it's not wrong.
Exactly. Like, technically, it's unnecessary, but if it's deliberate, the rules are changed.
Yes.
That's with everything.
So it fits fine. It's not like overly annoying, but it's in some scenarios it's unnecessary.
I think that's a big thing. It's like, it's not wrong. It's just unnecessary.
Yes.
Just think about it and try to shape it.
There are always
the way
exceptions to the rule. Yes.
The rules are entirely different when there's meaning behind it.
Yes.
If you write something because that's the way it works in your head, and someone comes back like, this sounds a little strange, think about it.
Yeah.
And then you can still take the time to think about it. Is it what I wanted to say? And if that's yes, then you keep it the way you had it and just say, I've thought about it, it's deliberate.
Yes.
And now the rules are changed because now it has intent.
Absolutely. I'm glad he says he likes the way I
Yeah.
read. It makes me happy. Because I keep being worried every time I make more comments. It's like, the first chapter, it's quite a long chapter to be fair. Like, the first chapter I made like 12 comments. I was like, this is way too much. I don't mean to. But also, like, I kind of need all of them.
Well, that is part of proofreading.
Yes. But
being harsh about it.
It's definitely good so far. It intrigues a lot. It's good. I'm very curious. Like, one of the ones for me was talking about the dream. I looked it up out of curiosity, and a few people said it's good for making dreams more obviously separate. I told him to make that italic, or I said that to specify that it's a dream, you could make it italic. Is basically what I said. But if you want to keep it kind of in line, I suggested to leave it the same if you want people to question whether it's a dream or not. Still thinking on that one, though. I might rewrite the dream to make it seem more like it's going on in the real world to make them question. That actually would work really well with that dream.
Well, then it's still deliberate choice.
Yes.
So
it's also,
it has intent to keep it this way.
That was one of the few comments where I was like, hey, you really don't need to do anything with this, but also this is how a lot of people do it. That doesn't mean you have to, but you can. Yeah. I very clearly stated in that one that it was just a note to make of like, hey, you can do it this way. This is how a lot of people do that. It's also something a lot of people do with, not telekinesis, the other one. Talking into another person's mind. It's what I did for Amarilla and Davine when he could hear her voice in her head. Telepathy, that one. Thank you.
There we go.
That's the way I denote that it's still spoken text, but it's different.
Yeah.
To make know that people know, like, oh, this is a different way of speaking, so it is italic in my case. There's also people that underline it, which I don't like in books.
No, it
I
looks
prefer,
weird.
if anything, then italic is basically the only thing I go for. Otherwise, if it is in a book, I would denote stuff with a different color if I can, but again, I really prefer not to.
If anything, it would be a lighter gray than the gray text of everything else.
Exactly. Or a darker black. So going for gray for most of the text or anthracite, and then going for a full deep black for something else.
Yeah.
That might work, but I prefer not to, although there are exceptions. So it's right above me. Take that one. That's the never-ending story.
Yeah.
My copy. Not all copies, but my copy. Let's see if I have a page. Yes, I do.
Probably illegible.
No, that's fine. It's also Dutch. So the red is the book that he's reading, whereas the green is the main character of this book. But the red is the book he is actually reading in the book. Because the never-ending story is a book in the book. Bookception. It's fine. So, basically, green is Bastion's story, and red is Atreyu's story.
Mm.
And at some point, they blend and become black. It's really good. I love this book. It's great. But that, like, in this case, it is very clear why they chose to color the text. Like, that makes the denotation of it being one way or the other so much clearer. There's also versions of the book where Atreyu's story is italic and the rest is regular, which, again, great way to denote how one way is one way and the other is the other. It's one of my favorite stories. It's great.
I should check if there's an audio version of that.
There should be.
Yeah, but if it's on my app.
Fair.
It's a different app than you use, so you wouldn't know.
You would actually really enjoy that story. I think.
Probably.
Thank you. I expected as much.
Fantastic.
I love the never-ending story. It's great. I changed how the first chapter character interacted with the priest. He called him father last time, and the character said, "Call me first." Call me first name. The main character responded with father first name, and then he uses father when I wanted to address. That works. I'm glad. That wasn't the way it was exactly, but I like that.
That works.
More. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's unnecessary, but it is showing how much respect there is.
Yes.
And at that point, it's deliberate.
Yes.
There's intent.
I very much, I mean, we did discuss that he would use honorifics instead of the name, because that makes it a little less, like, annoying is the wrong word, but it's the easiest to convey how you read something.
Mm-hmm.
If it keeps going like, oh, at the end and then holy, it's very repetitive, whereas an honorific is meant to be used in that way. Just like sir is,
My lord.
I mean, it is an honorific, but like sir is way less annoying because it's so used to being repeated, because you're supposed to repeat it, whereas a name isn't supposed to be repeated.
Lord, sir, elder.
It's only there
father.
on Dutch.
Damn.
I mean, I can check real quick if it's online in English, just to be sure. But, because then you can, I mean, I don't mind giving you access to that for a week or so.
That's fine.
I mean, it doesn't change anything. I kind of offered that to Mama. So many messages, what the hell? Never. I doubt it, because a lot of the books are the same.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. That's why I can't type. I wrote sultry instead of story.
Sultry.
It's not.
That's a character in Norse mythology.
And then it should have given me that. It's on there.
It's not, but it sounds like it.
It's fair.
There's characters like Surtur and Ertri and...
Fair.
Yeah. Sultry would definitely fit.
It would fit in
those names.
Absolutely.
But then you would probably write with an I instead of a Y.
I like how we were like, we're not going to go on a long tangent.
Oh, I didn't say not going on a long tangent. I did say not going on a tangent for 2 hours.
We're an hour in.
We're an hour in. But that's not 2.
Good conversation makes this happen.
Yep.
Lots. Hello, nice to
nice
you. Welcome in.
How are you
Thank
doing?
you so much for popping in. I like that. How are you?
Doing well.
I'm okay. Talking about stories.
Yes.
Or actually reading a story still, technically. Long time no see. Shouldn't you be asleep?
Of course. Shouldn't all of us?
I mean, it's for us it's 4 p.m. It's fine. For him it's like midnight.
Yes. But shouldn't we be asleep?
Yes, it's chapter 30 and 31 of the next book.
Yep. Second book.
It's gonna be 7 books. It wasn't the spoiler, we've said that before.
Yes. But yes, there's a lot.
We've actually, last Friday, decided on something for book 7 already.
Yes.
I could imagine if you're like, wait, what was it again? But I'm not gonna say it.
No.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy. Also, Joker, because since this is literally the first time you're here, please feel free to watch everything back on YouTube, because they are on YouTube.
Yes.
Yes, we're planning ahead.
Planning ahead? Absolutely. Well, we kind of need to, because these, Halo and Relic, are mostly separate stories.
Yes.
Like, you get to know the main character of Relic in Halo but it's so much different in years that the character is basically just the name.
Yes.
So they are separate, but over the course of all of them, there's going to be some like in between plot. So we do need to plan ahead to like see what things are going to be and how things are going to evolve.
It's
over time.
basically a red line.
Yeah.
We have a certain goal we're working towards, and that is going to work with what we already have and how we want to build up at least book 5 and 6. 3 is already planned somewhat because he has a very clear idea of what he wants.
Yep.
I basically only 4 really doesn't have any specific plans yet. 5 is already starting with the thing that Frog said. So
is it?
A little bit, yeah.
I thought 6 was.
I guess we didn't really decide on that yet. I thought it was 5.
Ah, well.
But we should
We'll figure that out.
We should start with those ideas at least around that book, because otherwise it's just going to be very sudden. So little bits of that.
I think 4 and 5 is probably like an interlude to the
6 and 7.
The ending. Yeah.
Planning stuff ahead gives lots of inspiration and stuff you can drop on time comes for real. I mean, the biggest issue we have now is we don't want this to end.
It's really hard to write.
We want to start in 3, but we don't want 2 to finish.
Yeah. It's kind of I want to do B, but in order to do B, I need to do A first, and I don't want to do A, so we're not doing B either.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything now.
I mean, it's also like mental space.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, there's definitely a bit where we both just don't want it to finish.
Like, I want something to snack, but if I want something to snack, I first need to do the dishes, and I don't want to do the dishes, so no snacking for me.
Exactly.
That's kind of what we're stuck in with the books.
We have done, though. We have actually written this week.
We have continued.
And if we feel okay, or if I... realistically, if I feel okay. Yeah.
Definitely we.
Then we might write tonight as well. Depending on how it goes. Otherwise it'll be Tuesday. Unless we don't stream on Monday. You guys have dinner tomorrow.
No lunch.
Oh, okay. Then it works. Yeah. I say writing chapter 5 and only gotten to maybe 1/8 or 1/5 of the story. That's a big difference. For when I was going to make the first book, but I'm probably going to actually have to make it what I wanted in book 1, so into book 1 and start of book 2. Just find a good breaking point in that story. Yes, it is executive dysfunction in a way.
Yeah. Also, an 1/8 and a 5th is not that much difference.
No?
It's 12.5% or 20%.
Yeah, but on a 5-ish pages, I think that can be quite a big difference. It's a lot of words that are suddenly gone.
It's either it's a little more than half a page or a full page.
Fair. It's like a paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a small paragraph.
It's not as much as I thought, but it does feel like quite a big difference.
It's not as bad as you think. The smaller the notation.
100%.
Yeah, the smaller the notation, the smaller the difference is. So the difference between 1/8 and 1/16 sounds like a lot, but in honesty, it's the difference between 12.5% or 6 1/4.
Yeah,
that's not that much difference.
Yeah, but I think the biggest difference makes how much 100% is, like the 8th or the 5th or the 16th.
Yeah,
like if all of that is huge, then the percentage may be small, but it can still be a huge chunk of thing.
Well, yes, but the difference between them.
Yeah.
So, like, the difference between an 8th and a 5th is not as much.
Chapter 5 is 13k words. I feel like I've covered almost nothing in the story. Then you may have a little bit too much background or world building fluff. Yeah, that works actually.
Well, basically,
I'm going to read it. It's already there, so I'll end up reading it. I like that he said like it's going to take you like an hour, which it probably would have if I wasn't reading it as a proofreader. If I'd been reading it as a book, I probably would have finished it by now.
In anything, there's the wire, and anything around it is fluff.
Yes.
anything around that main storyline is fluff. But it's
I'm having dinner. Yeah, cool. Like, I have dinner every day.
well, that's fluff.
That is fluff.
If that's
Exactly.
necessary fluff or not.
Yeah.
It's the choice between how much of that you add clay onto it.
Yeah. I don't want to assume people read speed because I know others can read better than me. I most definitely will read faster than almost everyone I know except for Apple. I think Apple is the only one that will actually read faster than I do.
You both read about twice as fast as I do.
That's fair.
I
We
read
also
pretty slow.
have a lot easier time to stay focused on a story than you do.
Yeah.
I do. Maybe. How long did one of the Akatar books take you, hour-wise? Because I can read the first. The first time I read the first one, I probably took like 8 hours.
Well, that's also very different. It's like give her one book, and it takes her a minute a page. And to give her another book, and it's like half a minute a page.
Yeah, but that's
it's
also
all about interest. And if Akatar just falls slightly different, then
it's mostly that I know that we both read my copy, that one, which does mean that it's the same lettering, same font. Well, it's literally the same book. She borrowed that one, so it's all the same, and I think we both have a similar interest in it. Although mine may be higher, which is also why I started talking about the first time I read it. Because if I read it now, it takes me 4 hours. Which isn't fair because I know half the story. Well, I know the story very fucking well. Not sure it greatly depends on the book. Actor probably about 50-60 pages an hour if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's fair. It's about 300 pages. 3 to 4. So that's similar. I think that's similar. Yeah, my interest is higher. I know, that's true.
yeah. I think you should
Start the same.
make the choice of how much fluff to add.
We should just do a reading weekend. Sit at next to each other, read the exact same book, and see how fast we read it. But then you still have the interesting.
Yeah.
But it's still a fun idea. Add Momo to the mix. Have the boys playing games. Guys, sorry.
Thank you.
Play games on the TV. I did. I remember. Too late, but I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta make sure the fluff is not too fluffy.
Yeah, well, that's in some places it should definitely be more fluffy than other places.
Agreed. Also to Apple. It did seem like fun. Marathon. Don't know, has it been okay so far? I do like it. Yeah, absolutely. The thing I said is like I would read it faster if I wasn't proofreading it.
Yeah, no, the amount of fluff.
Oh. I think for how I would normally read a book, there is a little bit more detail than I would usually use. So in that regard, yes, but I don't think there is too much fluff. Because I think the way you wrote it, the world building aspect of it is something that Apple would very much enjoy. Whereas for me, it's a little more than I would have preferred. But that doesn't mean it's bad or too much. It just means that I have a different preference. If you want another reader with different taste and stuff, I'm happy to read it as well. Yeah, I expected as much. She is also really good at proofreading. She proofreads our story as well.
Yep.
She may make less notes than I do, though.
I'm happy to read it. I'm just not going to say that I'm going to be reading it anytime soon. So if you would want me as a proofreader, it's going to take a while before you get feedback on it. Because I have way too many things to do out of my own volition.
And work. Yeah. Well, happy home.
So like, I have slightly different attention span to a book, because there's already so many things going through my mind. But yeah, I'd love to read it when it's further done.
I think I may be fine saying this, which might help for both of you to know what you're telling yourself into or asking yourself into. It is actually set up in a way that it is D&D style.
Oh, cool.
At least so far. Like, he hasn't told me anything about it, other than, hey, can you read this? But the way I read it, it can definitely be a setup for, like, oh, this character, and this character, and this character. Much like how we started with making our characters. He just explained them more before. Whereas we just fell into two of them and be like, well, I'm just gonna find the rest, it's fine.
Yeah.
I would love for anyone who wants to read it to get the chance. Just warning, writing at the moment, so might get to a point where it doesn't progress at the moment. We'll see. That's fair. Sorry to miss that.
Yeah, I missed what you said.
Oh.
That it's like a D&D kind of story.
It's much like a D&D thing.
Well, it does make sense because he also makes a lot of D&D.
Yeah. I didn't
content
expect
and
much
stuff,
else.
so.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people that play D&D will have a certain writing style.
It definitely is a writing style that you kind of fall into, and if that's what you learned to write with, then that's how you're gonna write. And your style is dependent on what you know.
Yeah.
I personally have very little reading experience, so my style is very malleable, but also very separate from what most books are like.
Yeah.
If I now were to get into a book very much, I would mimic the style they write in, which is not good, but also
it doesn't have to be bad. I think you also, which is one of the reasons why you prefer me to have the intros, you mold after what I give you, which is something you're very good at.
Yeah.
Just like, I give him an intro of like 4 sentences, and he'll give me a piece back of 20. Especially if it's a part where it's a lot of his interest, like a battle scene. Like if I intro a battle scene, then I don't have to write. I just have to intro and like say what my character says, and then he does the rest.
Yep.
Whereas if we have a dialogue between like 5 women and 2 men, then I have him do the men because that's easier for me.
I write some ladies as well.
My
own character is also female.
Yeah, you pull away from the bits. I usually tend to I have some sentences of Hazards. I have more so of Lachlan, but all of the sentences that are funny are his. I'm not funny. Yeah. But he definitely is. I can be funny a little bit.
I tend to just swap which character is talking, to have a focus on all of them.
Yes.
But Hazard and Idas are definitely my character. Well, Idas is definitely my character because it's entirely my character.
I will recommend something.
There are some sentences that I would write for Zenith. There are some sentences that you would write for Idas. But for Hazard, it's mainly my character. Lachlan is mainly your character. And Valentina and Delira kind of just float in between Ida as well.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit of both. There's no set goal for what they say and how they say it, so we can both write those. But with Hazard, it's a comedic relief character, so that's more of my style. And
I mean, his entire character is more your style, whereas Lachlan is very muted, so it's easier to write either way.
Yeah, and Lachlan is also more to the point, like on the course. So you are more on the course as well.
There are moments where I have more issue with writing, for example, Lachlan, which this was a perfect example. Most of what is written here has been him. Because I don't like Lachlan right now. He's not very nice to children, and both me and Zenith didn't like that very much. So
it was fun.
He basically made me upset in real life, being like, hey, we can do this. Also, no, actually, that's not completely true. I was the first one to mention that he has a kid.
Yes. And then I spun it into
And then he was like, oh, we can do something with this. I was like, but I don't want to. That was a joke. It's not a joke anymore.
It's not a joke. This is the plan. We're doing this.
Actually, Joker, I would recommend asking for the email addresses of the people so you don't have a floating document with sensitive information. It's not sensitive, but it's also your manuscript, not anyone is. If you send a link, or if you share it to certain people, they can't share it. Whereas if you share this link, we can share it. So I could technically share it with both Apple and Holy, the way you have to me, but I wouldn't recommend it. Even though I trust both of them. But that's like, I would recommend asking them for the email. And I gave you mine. So if you want to do that way, then you still can. But yeah. Then in that way they can't share it the way you shared it to me.
Keeps your private document private.
Yes.
So that's kind of the thing, right? We can ask for our emails and we can add them to the list, and then we can still share it.
No.
Yes, you can.
It depends on how he has the document set up. If he closes the thing that I had, then I can send you a link however much I want, but you will not be able to open it unless you have
editorial rights.
Yes.
Yes. That's my thing. If you put in an email address, you can make him an editor. And in some way that might be useful. You made me an editor of Halo, even though 40 chapters I didn't do shit.
True. I
could have shared it from there. Because I have editorial.
For editors, yes. But he can also make it where we are just commenters and then we can't share it.
Suggesters, commenters.
Yeah.
Basically people that can just view and not edit the text don't have the right or admin rights to send it through. But if you add an email address with like editorial rights,
they
can add more people and share it away. Technically, what you could also do is, even if you don't have editorial rights, Control A, Control C, different document, Control V, post it to everything.
True.
So if you were to send just the link, and anyone who opens that link is allowed to view it, there's basically no difference from having that with email addresses or private, whatever, as long as you trust the people that you sent that link to.
Yes.
If you trust them, knowing that they wouldn't share your work illegitimately, no problem, no harm done. So it's the same thing. If you want email addresses added to your document to have deliberate, control over who sees it, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you just want to send the link to everyone who is allowed to, and you don't want to go through the effort of actually getting their
teachers down.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll try to help you remember to actually send your email then.
Yeah, well, if he just sends the...
He says if anyone wants to read it, just drop your email in the DM, so I'll tell you to at some point. I'm guessing Apple's already on it.
Probably, yeah.
She could probably just share yours as well.
Yeah.
That would work.
But yeah, it makes very little difference. As long as you
do prefer being able to control.
Yeah, you prefer the control because at that point you can kick people.
True.
And then they don't have the access anymore.
True.
With a link, there is no
Always
way
access,
unless you restrict everyone.
Yeah.
And then you would just need to make a new link out of it.
That's true.
So yeah, it's a bit of both, because you can make things as secure as you want and still have issues.
I do think if you place it as view only, you can't actually control A it. I'm pretty sure.
You can.
Well, there is a way that you can make it a view only, where it's like a PDF, where it's a picture instead. There was a way, because I've had documents sent to me where I could not select anything, but then you could still print screen. Like, it's not safer.
Yeah.
But like, my point was that you can't actually select in certain settings. But that really depends on how much you go into the settings of it.
The internet is a funny place. Anything you see can be stolen.
True.
So only share whatever you want to the people you trust.
Yes. Absolutely.
So even a public link is as safe as you can make it. Anything that the user or the receiver sees can be stolen.
And the thing is, with it being in your email, as long as you don't share it anywhere, Google doesn't do anything.
Nope.
It doesn't share it anywhere else. It is fairly secure in that regard. The issue is when you share something like the link where everyone can select it. Yeah, anyone else can be that dick and do that. technically. So yeah, Google doesn't really care, but it does keep your stuff safe as long as you are safe with that.
Yes. Google doesn't play around with your stuff more than you do.
Yeah.
If you play around with your privacy, then it's on you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you don't.
I like how just before Nicer came in, we were going to start the next chapter. 1.5 hours in.
That's 15 minutes to go. There you go. But yeah,
let's do the next chapter.
Yeah, let's continue.
Let's actually do the streams.
Yes.
That's a thing. Let's go. Ready.
Let's go. Kneecaps.
There we go.
Chapter 31. Early in the morning, as the sun was just crossing over the sea towards the camp, Delira was keeping watch over Ira's sleeping forms. It was the second watch. Ira had done the first a few hours before her. Delira poked the embers that were still softly glowing, but she hadn't built a new fire. She wasn't particularly fond of fire, although she could tolerate it, but her skin felt wrong in its presence. Since her body was built for water, it was to be expected. Her eyes roved over the edge of the forest around her when she saw some movement along the trees. She was about to sound the alarm when she recognized Lachlan's green hair, following Zenith's gray wings. Guys, they've come back, she said in a clear voice.
It's just 5 more minutes.
We have come back. And guess what? We got Coropas too.
Hazard clapped his hands. Ida shot upright, startled by the clap. She looked into the faces of everyone like she was the main act in a play.
What are you all staring at me for? It's the rock you should be looking at.
Ida turned red as a tomato and pulled her blanket over her head.
Ow!
She sounded muffled, slowly making an opening in the ball of blankets to drop out a metal bar. Have you all traveled throughout the night? You must be tired. Come sit down, tell us what happened. Ira offered, her voice still slightly sleepy. We decided it was probably safest to come down right away, yes, Zenith said, sitting down at Ida's feet. It was quite the adventure, Valentina said, also plopping down by the remnants of the fire.
I know you don't like heights, but this should have been a lot of fun.
Yes, although I wouldn't call it fun.
Lachlan subdued Hazard's laughter. You must have seen the dragon rush overhead, no? Valentina asked, looking at the three who stayed at the base of the mountain. I did? How did you do it?
We went to the cave entrance. Hazard got the attention of the guards while I snuck in.
Lachlan started motioning for Hazard to continue.
So I threw a rock into the opening, and out burst this short, heavy-set guy. I started my fight with him, and gained the upper hand.
Then he shouted for the other to come out, so I looked at Zenith, and without saying a word, we knew exactly what the other was thinking. She helped me up above the cave opening. Out pops this massive ogre, and Zenith helped me make my drop on him. I literally fell from the skies in an attack. Valentina followed up their story. As Hazard and Valentina realized the big guy grew muscles when he took punches, they also realized how to defeat him. The other one was trying to get away, so I dropped a rock on his head, rendering him unconscious. Zenith contributed after Valentina spurred her on to speak up. She looked over to Lachlan, something in her face changing, but she wanted to know what had happened in the cave too, so she indicated it was his turn to speak.
Meanwhile, I went into the cave to deal with the dragon. Now that the guards were lured outside, I turned myself to look like a regular rock wall and was passed by unnoticed. We devised a plan to hold his son hostage and make the dragon leave the mountain in peace in trade of his son. As expected, the dragon refused, so I put a knife to the kid's throat.
Lachlan rounded the story back to him.
And then? Come on, you can't leave us at such a cliffhanger.
Ida's pleaded. Zenith and Valentina's faces tightened, but both remained silent.
All right. You'll get more.
He threw his hands up.
The dragon bounced back a little, seeing the knife. It's a sly beast. He snuck his tail behind me and yanked me off my feet. Took the kid and was ready to strike me into the ground and leave me there. But you know me, I know my tricks, so I jumped up. On top of his spiky head, froze over his eye with my magic. Realizing the danger he could put his son in, he spoke up. Fine, he said. I'll leave this mountain and settle somewhere else.
He shook his head to get enough of the ice away so he could rush out. I yelled after him, "You haven't seen the last of me," but I'm not sure he heard me anymore. Soon after, I found the stone, walked out, and saw the three of them standing over the two unconscious guards.
That's quite the tale. I'm glad you all came out unscathed. Can I inspect the relic?
By all means.
Lachlan said nonchalantly, holding up the rock.
Unscathed is an understatement. I'm knackered. I'll lay down and catch up these.
Hazard threw himself backwards and almost instantly started snoring.
Well,
Lachlan said, clapping his hands together.
we haven't had a proper meal since the adventure started. Time to make some good breakfast.
Ira started handing him some of the things he would need for that when he turned.
You want to help me make some food?
Not particularly.
Are you mad at me?
I'm frustrated. I don't understand how you could want to use a child in such a manner.
Didn't hurt him, did I?
No, but you would have. You said so. Would you hurt me if it were going to help you? He looked her in the eye for a moment, but then slowly looked away.
I wouldn't hurt my friends.
He mumbled, turning away to start on preparations for breakfast. The preparations ended up more quiet than anticipated. Slowly, some whispered talk started up as not to stir the pot between Lachlan and Zenith. As the morning progressed, everyone seemed to be ready to go back towards the workshop in Tarwin. Valentina, Hazard, and Lachlan all showed signs of being tired. "Your lot can get some rest on the boat. We should head to port and ask if we can head back today," Ira offered as she started to clean up the camp.
Finally, heading back home. I probably have so many jobs piled up by now.
What will be your first project, aside from paying jobs, of course?
Probably continue with the machines I've been working on. I should almost be done with them, and then we can take them for a spin.
Ida rubbed her hands together in excitement.
Still sounds rather vague.
Are those the drawings you showed us?
They sure were. Big honkin' motorcycles.
Ida threw her arms in the sky.
It's all in parts, since I wasn't sure if I'd be able to finish it, and I didn't want to make you all excited over nothing, you see.
At first, she got mostly shocked faces her way. The first big smile to appear was Hazard's.
You're building his bikes? That's amazing.
His laughter almost shook the trees.
Since the east of the continent is hard to travel through by train, I thought we'd need some vehicles to cross the lands.
Ida smiled. It wasn't until the words vehicles crossed her lips that Sina's brow unfurled. She finally understood what they were talking about. During their talk, everyone had finished gathering their belongings, and they started their walk towards the fort.
I'd be happy to help you put things together. Sounds great. I'll need some extra hands. I can show you one, and then we can build the rest together.
Ida swung her arm around Zenith's neck. Zenith finally loosed a little chuckle at the half-hog as they walked. It didn't take them long to arrive at the docks, where they were informed by a stroke of luck that Captain Salem would be departing in only an hour. The wait went by quickly, as did the boat trip. The small canal between the mainland and the island was calm, with the tailwind straight through the sails. With the wind stream guiding them, Salin and Nuglas took their time to sit down, take a break, and talk with Zenith and the others. During their 3-hour boat trip, surely 2.5 were filled with Nuglas's ongoing banter about other travelers that had joined their boat trip in the past couple of days, to the dismay of Captain Salin, who had heard it all for days on end. Arriving at the mainland, the group paid off the captain and set off to the train station. Since most trains were fairly frequent, they were back at the workshop within another few hours, just in time to have dinner with each other. Lachlan attempted to include Zenith in the process, but when she declined, Valentina stepped in to help him make a full meal for everyone. Zenith followed Idas to talk through the steps they would be able to start working on that very evening. Sitting still had made both women restless, so they were happy to have a project in hand. Zenith, always happy to help her friends, had to admit to Ida several times she wasn't sure she completely understood what she was building over the course of that evening. After a good amount of work on the vehicles Idas was constructing, she told Zenith to go meditate. Everyone else had gone to bed hours prior, and Idas, however eager to continue, knew she would produce better work after some sleep as well. When the morning arrived, Zenith was ready for her, with a plate of bacon sandwiches and a cup of pekorum, asking for directions.
What can I do?
She asked, her voice chipper.
Good morning. There's still a lot left to do. Some segments need to be constructed, assembled,
and put onto the main contraption. So, big explanation time. First, we're going to build all of the airflow intake valves. Then, they will make sure that the engine doesn't overheat and melt down, or worse. An airflow intake valve is made with these giant pipes. These smaller pipes are these pieces of mesh, and all these pieces of mesh following this blueprint. You can start with those while I finish these sandwiches. Idas pointed at all the required pieces and handed Zenith the blueprint, while, absent-mindedly, dipping her sandwich in pakoro. Zenith took the blueprints from Idas and looked them over carefully. She grabbed one of the larger pipes and walked back to Idas. So, that piece fits on here? She asked, pointing at the blueprint and then a section of the pipe. She was trying to understand how to read a blueprint, because it wasn't the same as normal reading. You got it! This big tube you're holding is labeled E2, which is connected to smaller pipes all labeled F1. The other assembly is mirrored, so that's E1. Idas explained. Zenith nodded as she walked back over to the materials. She started working on putting them together like the blueprint told her. Will you have to weld these? She asked, still focused on her task. I might need to teach you how to weld. That way I can assemble the pieces that are more complicated. For now, I'll still do the welding. Idas took the final gulp of pakoro. Good brew, by the way. Could use less breadcrumbs, though.
And you shouldn't have dipped your bread in it,
rumbled Hazard from the breakfast table. Both women looked shocked. Neither of them had noticed him getting up or moving around. Zenith had been too focused on her work, and Idas had chalked it up to not being fully awake. Just as Idas had wanted to respond to Hazard, a loud knock on the workshop door woke everyone up as well. I don't expect anyone, I don't think. It's kind of busy for commission, so I'm not sure what this is about. Idas walked to the door, and with a clack, the heavy bolt on the door was unlocked.
I'm so terribly sorry to have awoken you at the earliest of hours, Lady Mado.
A young man at the door said quickly.
The patron of Mirith is requesting your immediate assistance. I am to take you to him at once.
We're currently booked up entirely and in the middle of something. What is this about, since I can't come along at this instant?
Booked?
The young man looked spooked.
It's rather a private matter.
He looked around at Idas, seeing that all eyes inside were on him.
Can I write it down so I can get after it later? Since it's urgent, I can move some schedule around. Earliest I can put you would be around 2 weeks from now. Idas flipped through a logbook she pulled from a small table beside the door.
2 weeks?
The man cried out. They all started to get the feeling that this patron wasn't a very friendly boss to the young man.
Well, if that's the best you can do, I'll take anything at this point. He insists it needs to be you, though, so please.
He looked resigned. He realized there was nothing to be done but to accept. After Idas wrote down the details, she muttered a soft apology to the man. She closed the door behind him and returned to where Zenith was working. Zenith proudly held up a normal and a mirrored version of her project.
Did I do them right?
She asked, beaming up at Idas.
Yeah, sure did. Well done. Grab any blueprint labeled G, the G something, and try to find the pieces that go along with them. They're all labeled appropriately. I will be working on B through D,
Idas said, looking around at the closed door, pondering what matter could have been so important.
It's just like a puzzle,
Zenith said happily. She rummaged through the blueprints to find the ones that Idas meant, and started gathering parts for it. They worked on it for hours, while Valentina, Ira, and Delira cleaned around the workshop, mostly working on spaces that weren't needed, like the kitchen and doing laundry. Lachlan pulled Hazard, reluctantly, to the market to get some more produce for the next day, but Zenith suspected that Lachlan just needed to be out of there for a little bit. It didn't bother her. In that moment, she felt a little more at ease with him out of the house anyway.
Finished.
There we go.
That's it.
That's it for today.
Yes, it's 2 chapters again, like it said in the title and everywhere.
It is going to be.
Yep.
For now.
Yep. It's gonna stay this way.
Yep. I wonder if Joker's still here, and if he's like the
Yeah, there we go. Awesome.
Great timing.
It was nice, yes.
For him, it's now going to be like, what the hell is happening now? He has no idea. I definitely recommend at least reading or listening to the second book now, if you're interested.
And if you're interested, also go back to the first.
Yeah, eventually, but
it is not required.
Exactly. Like, if he just wants to understand what this is about, go read the second one and then going back for the first one.
Sick.
Awesome. Well, every third week we do a stream unless there's something popping up, but I always post in the PDD. Poison the Dungeon. Not everyone knows what that is. Frogs, the Discord. It's all fine, don't worry about it. I also have my own, but no one uses it, so I do.
Yeah,
to post
for storage.
Yes.
But yeah, every third week, like you said, unless things change, and then you'll know.
Yeah.
We do 2 chapters of this book. In the meantime, we are working a little bit ahead, just to try to get more content before we actually need it.
Yes.
Our grip has been slipping, like we said in the last chapter and intermission, to continue and to finish it. It's just difficult.
Yes.
And we hope you enjoy, because we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think that if you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't be here still. So, yeah.
So we do the voices because we really like it. Technically, it's not necessary, but it made it easier to find a way to include him in the streams.
Yes, we had an idea, or well, you had an idea to write a book together, and
well, it started actually. I reread our first conversation because I was looking for something in our chat at some point, and I had like for some reason it sent me there, and it was perfect. And I read the entire first conversation. Like, I have this idea. What's your idea? I really want to start like right now. I have this idea. I was at work, and back then he still chatted with me the entire day. I sent him like I want to make a story, and I want like several people to give me a character. I want to build a story around that, like around them. And I want you to be the first one to make a character with me. Because as I got home, he had written an entire backstory for David.
yes,
he immediately did the work. And then I started asking other people, I was like, hey, I really want to make this thing. I need you. Would you want to help me? And I never actually explained that it was going to be a story at first. I just said, I need a character. So a lot of people actually asked at first, like, are we going to play D&D? Because I made it so much like D&D, which is also how I basically explained it to him. It's like, I want to make character sheets based on how you make a D&D character. I want to start a story on that.
Yep.
And there was no idea whatsoever. He made a backstory, he made a character, and he made him a specific, I'm not going to say it because now you don't know. And he made him a specific species. And from that species, I was like, we can do something with this.
You asked me for a character, so I gave you a character sheet.
Yes.
And from there, it was like, oh, well, that's cool. Let's finish working on this character sheet, and then I can send it out to other people. And then you sat down with others.
Yes.
With, for example,
Momo, Frog,
Dragonwolf,
Cherry, and Apple.
And Apple.
And Knight.
Yes, there were 8. That was well, there were 8 characters that had a character sheet. And that's
Cherry, Frog, Momo, Apple, Knight.
Yeah. That was like a missing one.
Yeah.
And for this one, we had Vixie. We had some again and some different.
We had less this time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them went for a female, and then he did too. So there's a lot of females in this one. I got to do the same thing basically because I'm using characters the players made, and they are all very unique and odd, but amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, same way we did.
Yeah.
Basically, we have a characteristics sheet. There's a backstory. There's like, what do they look like? How would they act? Hazard, for example, acts very brash and very explosive, very accurate. And
he's a demolition man, by the way.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah. You'll find that out. So yeah, it's like we have a character sheet for that character, and then from there we
base the story.
Visualize and push him into a world.
Yeah.
And from the moment that the person, I'll take Sir Froglin as an example, the moment Froglin had his character sheet created, we took it and we used it. He was not involved in
I
the creation of
sometimes
that.
ask for reactions, like how do you think this,
Well,
especially
yeah.
with Grodnix. The first story was more so, because he has two characters in this one and the old one. So the first one, his character is Grodnix, and especially that one, I had a lot more where I was like, hey, how do you think your character would react to this? So
Yeah, and that kind of fell away the moment I started writing it.
Yes.
Because at that point I created
Yes.
Grodnix farther. The same with
Which was only in the last 20 chapters.
20 chapters, yeah. Still a third of the book.
True.
But for Hazard, I don't think you have asked Dragonwolf how you would have Hazard respond to anything.
But that's also because you are now writing the mails, which I would less so ask. There's a few things that I ask Apple for, because she's reading everything alongside us.
Yes,
I'm
Apple
like,
also
hey,
has a
how
character.
would you... Yeah, so in this one, Delira is her character.
Yep.
In that regard, I will ask her, like, hey, this is how you envisioned your character. How does this fit in? But even then, like, she is also able to just immediately, whenever she reads this, be like, hey, this is not really my character reaction. She has never done so I think we're doing correctly, but she's the only one actually able still to change her character.
Vix, you mean us? Or Joker?
I'm partly one of the contributors to getting around to basic awareness, I would call it, since I have become lots better at fleshing out characters. Oh, me helping her write her character.
That's really cool.
Probably how she means it, that she is now better at writing the at least characters. Awesome.
Sick.
Awesome. I gave my players some stuff to help with the story and shenanigans of all nonsense. I actually did exactly the opposite. I was like, just make me whomever you want.
Yeah.
The first one, I had no qualms.
pointers.
I said nothing. I was just, I want a character. That's all I want. The second one, I did say, like, this is a full fantasy story, because the first one isn't technically a full... Oh, it is a fantasy story.
It is.
The world is not full fantasy. Whereas this one is. There's a human side where they have cars and things. So technically it's half.
It's a high fantasy world,
Yes.
but there are humans.
Yes. And
Because
this
low
one
fantasy would be still Earth.
fair.
So it's a high fantasy world because it's not our world,
That's fair.
but it is still relatable
Yes.
to our world. And the second book is fully high fantasy and doesn't have any humans.
Exactly.
Every humanoid is in some way not human.
Yes.
So, for example, like Ida's is humanoid. She is short and slim. She walks on two legs, and she is basically just a normal human size compared to the rest of the party, whom are all human-sized. But what's it called? The species of Ida's, she is a pixie.
Yes.
So she has basically like dragonfly wings on her back.
Love her character. Your character. She's great. It looks great.
Thank you.
In my head, at least.
So she's just slightly weird, and Zenith has her wings.
Yeah, they're a thing.
Yeah.
She's good at one.
Yeah. And we have Hazard, who is also just a guy. Technically, never really specified what species he is. No one knows, no one cares. He has a metal arm and a metal leg.
Yes.
Basically like how Edward Elric has from Fullmetal Alchemist. He just has one arm that is gone and replaced by metal. Obviously, he doesn't have alchemy like Edward has in Fullmetal Alchemist, but same thing still applies.
Can I open this in my Chrome in any way? As
Yes.
a document.
Okay.
I want to show you guys something.
Yeah.
Oh wait, it actually said Open and Explore as well.
No, that's the one I want. Open and Explore at the bottom. Good.
Oh, that's File Explorer. That's the
Yes, no, that's what I want.
Okay.
Because now I want to put that over here. I want to put this over here, and I want to just drag and plop.
Oh, that's useful.
And then also, do you have FN on your?
FN, yes.
Yeah, but do you need FN? Or do you have it set up to just
For what?
for the function?
Yeah, depending on what you want to do.
I want to press F11.
Well, then you just do FN.
Okay, cool. Because some people have it set up differently. If you press Fn, you get the function that it does. There you go. If you press Fn, F11, for example, you would go into full screen. But some people have it set up that you just press F11 like you do. There is an option that you can, it's basically a check mark in your system, that you can switch between what is the function key's function. Does it switch the function of the actual key, or is it now it's the function key? That's kind of the difference. So if you were to press F3 on my keyboard, you would up the volume. Or on Apple's laptop, you would up the volume. But if you press F3 on my keyboard, it does something entirely different.
Yeah, that's fair.
And since F11 is safe, but F12 is putting your entire system to sleep, and F10 is putting it in an airplane mode, both of those are going to kill the stream. So I didn't want to just assume.
No, that's fair. So I wanted to show you guys this. This is actually the most basic version of the world we're currently in. It's not completed here because otherwise there would be a nice little land here, which I think you can see my mouse. You can't even see my mouse.
Okay.
So on the little island in the top corner.
Yep.
Right next to Holy's head.
Other side.
Other side. Is where they were just in the forest, came down, crossed the canal that you can see in between, and gotten back to Tarlon, which you can see at the bottom of the west side of the continent.
If you can read that.
If you can read that. I mean, I think they could, if they have it open fully.
I think so too.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the continent we're working on, basically. I've gotten a story that's quite a lot to cover. Take a while to catch up to the current D&D sessions. It's 3 years of doing D&D, so yeah. Fair. I'm planning to write this all up and then let the players read it, and if they are okay with it, then maybe releasing it. Nice! We are actually going to try and make our books. Well, we are making our books.
Yes.
So,
we are producing this version, and we're releasing this manuscript as audio.
As a proofread, basically, as an arc.
Exactly. So we are just trying to get feedback on what we have created in the meantime.
I mean, you're gonna have the books regardless.
Yes.
He's gonna get them regardless.
Don't worry, Apple, you'll have signed copies.
But yeah, I did want to show that. I actually have the same map made for the first one.
Yep. Technically, we didn't really use that map, but this one we have.
I mean, that one I made literally after we finished the story. This one we actually...
Well, we did keep some form of layout, actually, in an Excel doc.
Yeah, this is...
Google Sheets.
Hey, it worked!
But it worked very well. It was just a little crude.
It worked fine.
It did.
I know two very defining traits of any character. So it's anthropomorphic character, and their name is likely inspired from my usually any characters I make. That's fair.
G, yeah, Velutina.
I mean, she did also say Vixie or Vixiara at the time. I think both. She was just changing her name at the time.
Yeah.
But Velutina definitely fit.
Yeah.
Really well.
Yeah.
I like it.
I also think that it's funny that it's all anthropomorphic.
Yeah.
Got a full word map and getting some detailed, more detailed each chance I get to work on it. Yeah.
Sick.
Naming stuff is the bane of my existence. Well, technically you could have told me to name her.
Or me.
Or him.
We're
or
both,
Apple.
We're both very good with names.
We are definitely.
Well, Apple isn't that good with names. Whenever Apple needs a name, it's me.
But technically she was able to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. If you need a name, then where's the fun in that?
That's true. That's fair.
That's true. You did also...
technically, I ended up deciding on Valentina. You were like, I don't know which one I want. These are the options. I was like, let's go for this.
Yeah.
So technically, I decided. Names are fine. Your names are nice. Can I name your characters? I'll also see if I can actually say them correctly.
Also, Vix, you gave us 2 other names that we used in the story. Gaius and Emmett.
Yes. We used them a lot. Emmett was fun.
Emmett was fun. He didn't really get all that much screen time.
If I try to do his voice, it doesn't pick me up. I just noticed. Yeah, it does you. Why would you ask forward help if you can spend 2 hours looking at random name generators and still not using any of it? Yeah, I mean, reading them out. And yes, he said, go ahead. Okay, cool. So, one of them, I'm pretty sure you say Balthazar, which is Baal, like the way I spelled Baal, and then Balthazar.
Cool.
And then we have Xanarith. I'm pretty sure I said that correctly too. I'm gonna have to grab the other one because it's a really difficult name.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Sir something part was easy, but the second name was difficult. How do I do this easy? Here. That one.
Alright.
Oh, cool. I need to log in.
Ah, yes, good. Thanks, Google. That's useful. Especially when you're in the middle of something and you want to continue.
It's very annoying. So, did I say it correctly, Xanareth?
It's a cool but harder one created by Rob the Bearded Dragon.
So
that's cool.
One of the deities' names is Lathander, which I really like.
Sick.
The priest's name is Alaric, which I'm sure that I'm saying correctly. I don't even have to look it up.
Xanareth is from
Xanareth.
Xanareth? Yeah,
here.
I'm gonna bully that. Butcher that.
Xanareth.
Yeah, it's also there. Yeah. It's from Cherry. Cool.
Understandable. Sounds like her. I was trying to find the other start of the chapter because he does name them in the chapter title, so it's useful. Sir Ron Quixote? Chicote?
It's like
Chicote! It's Chicote, isn't it? That's Star Trek. Fuck. I was reading it. I was like, wait, hold up. No, that's Chicote. It needs to be. I really hope it's pronounced Chicote. That would be amazing. Also, then I want to know.
It's also it kind of reminds me of Don Quixote.
Yeah, that's how I read it at first, Quixote.
But then Ron Quixote.
Yeah. But if it's Chicote, that would actually be fun. It's not completely different reference, but I gotta point that out to Rob now. That's fair.
It's not Chicote. Okay.
And he has a dog, a mastiff called Amadeus, which I really like.
It is Ron Quixote.
Nice.
Fuck yeah. It is Don Quixote.
That's nice. That's great.
Well, then the weirdest spelling on Quixote. Because like Quixote is Quixote. Quixote.
Fair.
That is a weird spelling. Also, you were hungry writing that name because there's quiche in that name.
Yeah,
like straight up quiche.
So friends of
then Rob was hungry.
The friends of Xanareth are Adakara and Severa.
Ooh. Severa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the names. They're great.
They're cool. You got cool names.
But he did say that these are basically made by other people, so that's fair. Then does that mean that none of them are yours because you're the DM?
That would be cool.
Or the characters, at least, none of them are yours. Because that is the one thing that I did implement. Like, I wanted my own characters. There's actually a very cool thing happening with our specific characters.
Yep. That's part of the red line that spans all books.
Exactly. Adakara is yours. Okay, cool. So I'm guessing they're coming back.
And
Sapphira, yeah.
Cool.
I love the names. They're great.
Adakara and Sapphira. Sick names.
Obviously, I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly. That's
No.
how I would read them, and
Yeah, same.
how I would say them.
Same.
Technically, it's really difficult to get those high fantasy names like pronounced correctly,
I mean,
especially like Quixote. Like, this is not how you spell that. Also, if you take Irish names, if you don't know the pronunciation of like Siobhan, then yeah, good luck.
Yeah,
That's not how it looks.
Siobhan.
Siobhan.
Yeah.
Siobhan.
And the priest you'll meet more later, but that's a lot you still have to meet. Yeah, I already had one of his friends that I don't remember was Jared or something like that, but that was a more normal name that I was like, wow, that's fair. And the fact that they are called deacons and not like monks or...
Ooh, deacons.
They are called deacons, yes. Which I liked. But yeah, I like making names. I also like when I'm reading books. Again, I'm going to go back to that series of the A Court of Thorns and Roses. The main character's name is Feyre, which is spelled Feyre. And the first time I read it, I was like, I don't know how to actually pronounce this. And then it tells you how it's pronounced. I really enjoy that when it's a difficult name.
How do you mean it tells you how it's pronounced?
So at some point, someone says her name to her, and she, in her mind, because it's written in the first person, so she's telling the story, she actually says how, like, oh, they pronounced it correctly, and then it gives you the pronunciation in, like, phonetics.
Oh, cool.
So that makes it way easier to read. Some other books will do it, which I even more prefer than trying to fit the story around doing that bit. A lot of stories will have a piece all the way in the back of the book where it literally gives you the phonetics of every name that is difficult, which I also really enjoy, because then you can just go look up what is the pronunciation of this name.
I like Fixie's comment of hopefully not Deacons of the Deep, because I immediately thought when you said Deacons, I was like, oh, Deacons. Deacons of the Deep.
That's fair.
So Deacons of the Deep is a boss fight in Dark Souls 3.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to mention something, but I don't want to promote myself here. Go ahead, I don't care. Hopefully not Deacons of the Deep.
We're already talking about your book anyway, so.
It's true, but he wasn't going to stream, or at least we haven't talked about him streaming his book.
I don't know if he doesn't, then he doesn't. But we are technically already promoting you, so we're talking about your content in a way.
True. And he is also streaming his sessions of D&D, so it could be.
He's already streaming a part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's this story though.
Exactly.
This campaign, but I assume so. Because it is with Cherry and Rob and someone else that I don't remember.
Eddie, maybe?
And Frog now.
Oh yeah.
He just started that. The Kara will be in stream later tonight in the D&D stream. So
cool.
we'll have some shenanigans. Ooh, that's
sick.
interesting.
So
now every time I watch the streams, I'm gonna have spoilers.
yeah, that's kind of the question. Is this book a side story to the D&D, or is this the D&D story?
What I just read earlier in the chat is that he said that he kept log of everything that has happened so far. At least that's so far as I understood it. So it's basically from way back when they made these characters, and then I'm guessing the first campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very intrigued. So I was in a call with Joker, Frog, and Knight, I believe, and we were talking about fears. Now, obviously, everyone knows by now I'm deadly afraid of fire. It's fine. And he mentioned that, or he asked, how are you with descriptions of, like, I was mentioning that I don't like seeing it, and it's even worse if I can hear it, and when something happens in a TV show, that I will usually also cover my ears and eyes so I don't hear the crackling of fire. If I see someone burning, that is no thank you. And that it makes me uncomfortable. And then he asked, how is that in writing? How is it if someone explains this to you, blah, blah.
In reading.
In reading. And now I know why. That was in the first chapter. It's like, now I know why. And I was like, yeah, no, this is fine. It doesn't have to be more than this. It's uncomfortable, but it's fine.
But the fire aspect definitely has me intrigued because I have no idea what's happening. I'm really, really, really curious. So I have 2 D&D sessions, one every other Friday, one from every Sunday. Sunday game is the one that is being written up. It's to write up all my notes from the last 3 years. So
Cool.
yeah, I felt bad. I didn't want to spring it on you. No, that's definitely fair. It made me a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't horrendous. They also started, like, especially Frog was asking how is that in anime and things, so he showed me a picture of a character that is basically all flames.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I guess this is technically fine. That one.
Cool.
I was like, technically it's fine. It makes me uncomfortable, but I don't, like, it doesn't bother me, but it would bother me if I then hear the sound of crackling fire. That would make it worse for me. Endeavor, I think, I guess that's what he's called. So if anyone is wondering, in the PDD, if you go into the chat of the Game Corner specifically, that's where the image is. But yeah, it's definitely not my type of thing. I prefer not. But, I mean, if it's in a story, then I will read it, and then I will promptly try to forget it.
I am pretty sure that there will be some moments where either of us is going to get into a fear trigger when we write things.
Yes. I could have imagined you being that in certain bits of this story, because Dalira is a water nymph that goes into deep water.
Yes.
I could imagine you being like, I feel uncomfortable with this. I don't know if you have. But
no.
If you at any point write someone on fire, I will be uncomfortable. But don't make that stop you.
It may happen. I'm not saying it won't. I'm not saying it will.
I mean, we could have already had that because Surfer was being attacked by a fire demon.
Yep, and he had severe burns.
He did have severe burns.
He wasn't
frost
on
burns.
fire.
No, he had both. It might help to cause you write the story, so technically you know what's in the water. That is fair.
That is definitely a help.
Yeah. The difference becomes when I make a character go into deep water and not know what is happening. I think if reading that, you may get that.
I don't think so, because my fear is mostly of seeing.
That's fair.
So when I read it, it's a different experience, because I can just imagine that not being the case.
Fair.
And then you explain that there is a monster, and it's not unknown anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
I might get uncomfortable if there is literally nothing, and I can imagine there being nothing. But that's also still a visual issue, not necessarily
imagining
reading.
it.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So there's that difference. But yeah, with fire, that's
I definitely will
issue.
have an issue with fire, but I won't let that stop me. Also, I think I wrote part of Zerfer's fight with the fire demon, so it's not like I will ever.
I think I wrote
most of it, but I also wrote bits of it with IO.
Yeah, I think you wrote a bit after to fix it.
That might be.
But also no spoilers, because that's a thing that some people haven't.
This is not a spoiler, it's a teaser.
It's still a spoiler. Teasers are also spoilers.
Yes, they are.
Go read the book.
Go read the book. Go listen to the story and read the book.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good. I like it. I
wanna keep note of everyone who read the manuscript. So when the book comes out, that's the people that actually get a signed copy.
Oh, that works. Yeah. I mean, we can still do signing sessions if it becomes big, but they will get a special edition.
Yeah. No promises.
And we'll get spoilers back.
Shit. Yeah, I think I'm basically talked out.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, I really want to play that game. That's fair. Anyway, thanks everyone for being here.
That is all.
That's fair. Thank everyone for being here. Let me just quickly see if Mr. Knight is streaming, because it's usually a thing. Yes, I know that's Frog, but you can do this.
That's fine.
No one. Cool. Awesome.
So thank you guys for being here.
Yes.
We hope to see you next time. It's in 3 weeks, and if you need to watch everything back, go do that now. You have 3 weeks.
Yes. Get on it.
Get on that.
Get on it.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the streams in our absence.
And enjoy Easter, because it's Easter.
Yes, a happy Egg Festival.
Eggy Day.
Thank you also so much for being here. Have a good night.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.